The charity, the International Rescue Committee, says that many asylum seekers are staying in prison-like conditions on Greek islands. Meanwhile, here, come here illegally, £6 million a day on hotels, access to all our public services. We'll even give you legal aid to fight your deportation. We'll offer you the chance of a new life in Rwanda. Good grief, we are there for the taking. Joining me now to discuss this is GB News contributor and former MEP Martin Daubney. Martin, it's the story we all knew was happening. We are not the bad guys.
Well, Patrick, don't you just love the stench of European Union hypocrisy? That's what this story is about, because don't forget, we are the closed-minded, closed borders, little Englanders who drew up the drawbridge to the world when we Brexited, and open borders, so beloved of the European Union, were absolutely central to their bloc's dream. And yet here we are, the reality hits home. It is they who drew up the drawbridge, they who are locking people out, fleeing war zones, while at the same time saying to us that we should openly accept as many economic migrants as we can possibly house and beyond, who are traipsing through several European Union member states before they even get to us. And this is absolutely totemic and emblematic of what they do out there. Nothing. It's a complete talking shop. Patrick, I'll never forget the day I was in there and we were asked to vote. The European Union, they queued up one by one, the socialists, the Greens, the Liberals, to condemn Donald Trump for imprisoning Mexicans on the border of America who'd entered his country illegally. He was perfectly entitled to do that. It had nothing to do with the European Union, and yet they threw themselves to their fainting couches, condemning his actions. And yet now look, when it comes to their own borders, they are basically closed to people genuinely fleeing war zones. It's absolutely emblematic of their stupidity.
No Afghans have actually been able to access Germany's 1,000 a month Afghan resettlement policy. In Greece, they put them on detention camps on some of the islands, and then once they grant them leave to remain, they say you've got 30 days to get out of there, find yourself a job and a flat with your entire family, otherwise you're homeless. Whereas here, I mean, Martin, the amount of money that we're dishing out, we give them a weekly allowance. We're building new houses for them. It's absolutely bonkers, Martin.
Yeah, and also Italy, Patrick, have only fulfilled half of their obligations. Don't forget, in Meloni, we have a prime minister who pledged to end open borders across the Mediterranean. But even they have taken far, far more than Germany. But you're right. We have limitless, it seems, capacity to take these people in. We should be, I think, welcoming. I, for one, definitely question the 606,000 net migration figures announced on Thursday last week. We are simply opening our borders too much. But in the case of a genuine war, particularly one where we had our fingerprints on it, our servicemen have boots on the ground in Afghanistan, you could argue we have more of an obligation. And yet the European Union is absolutely closing its borders. They are the precise thing they accuse us of. They are small-minded, closed borders, hypocrites.
And the hypocrisy is exactly what I want to call out here. And I am not necessarily saying we should lower our standards. I don't want us to start actively treating people worse. I want us to take much fewer of them. I want us to be much stricter, of course. I don't think we need to sink ourselves to the lowest common denominator. But I certainly think we should be shouting across the channel, going, excuse me, you are not doing half as much as we are. But, Martin, it's no wonder, is it, that people are desperate to come here? And the reason is obvious. It's because we treat them better. We're a soft touch.
Yeah, and, you know, stories like this, for all of its faults, it drives a coach and horses, Patrick, through this Romaniac myth that Britain is a racist, unwelcoming, xenophobic cesspit. Why is it that people are risking their lives to get here? Because we are a fantastic country whose hospitality is being endlessly abused. And then the Linekerites accuse us of behaving like 1930s Germany, when the European Union literally will not take people fleeing a war zone that they were involved in directly. And I think that's what this is about. It's about complete double standards. And Guy Verhofstadt, the man who puts the BS into Brussels, he's on Twitter today saying that we should want to rejoin the European Union. For what? For more of this? The fact we're Britain means we're nimble. 27 member blocks haven't been able to agree on a single thing about the Afghan policy. Meanwhile, we've been nimble, we've been quick, as we're on vaccines. No, I don't regret a single moment, Patrick, of going to Brussels and getting shut of this lot, because if we were still in there, we'd be part of this chaos too.
Yeah, exactly. And they need to front up to it, OK? They need to stop. This shatters that illusion, as you were talking about. It shatters the illusion of the good guys versus the bad guys. We are doing more. And again, I just want to reiterate to people, if you arrive in somewhere like Greece, or you find yourself in somewhere like Greece, and this is, by the way, as a certified Afghan refugee. So these aren't just the people who claim to be from SOA. These are certified Afghan refugees. There's every chance they will put you on an island in a detention centre. They'll take ages to process you. You won't be able to access the public services when you're over there. They'll say to you eventually, if they do indeed, so yeah, all right, you can stay. You've got 30 days to get out of here. Your paperwork won't catch up with you, so you will find yourself homeless somewhere on the streets of Athens with your kids and just left to wander around. And yet, when what we want to do here is say, well, we'll process your asylum claim. And by the way, that's taking ages. And if you want to fight it, we'll give you taxpayers-funded money in order to do that. And then if you want to go and start a new life with your family in Rwanda, a safe country, then you can do that. And for some reason, we're the big racists here.
Yeah, and it's also a delicious irony, Patrick. When you look at this charity International Rescue Committee, it's headed up by none other than David Miliband, the greater of the two Miliband brothers, who's a frothing at the mouth Romaniac and one of the biggest critics of Brexit, one of the biggest fans of Brussels. And today we've had the slight rustling of tumbleweed. And from those who normally sing the praises of the European Union, absolutely silent on this, an absolute dereliction of duty, an abdication of human rights, of helping those fleeing a war zone. And the European Union today are proving to be the precise thing that they accuse us of, Patrick.
But we've got to be bolder, Martin. We've got to be bolder. This, surely, is the opportunity that the government... It's a gift. It's a gift. When we say, look, we're going to be strong on this. We cannot, as taxpayers... we are redoing up historic military bases to house some of these people. We are plonking, in some cases, around 1,000 people in a rural community with nothing to do all day, with no extra provision for GP surgeries or schools, etc. We're going to extreme lengths here, OK? And for anyone who thinks that this can carry on, well, it can't. And if you think that's evil, then you're more than welcome to go and move to the European Union, where, my friend, you will find the situation is actually much worse.
Yeah, and I've been to places like Linton on News, Patrick, and I've spoken with locals who are very, very concerned about safety of their children. 500 people live in that small village, and 100 of those are children. There's going to be 1,500 men dumped on that town. People have every right to be concerned about that. This is a huge invasion of their privacy and their human rights, which seem to not matter. Time after time, these things are foisted upon the British public, and yet here we are, seeing the European Union dragging their feet, not doing the same. And you're exactly right, Patrick. This should be all of the food, all of the data that British voters need to say, enough. We've taken loads of Ukrainians, we've taken loads of people from Hong Kong, we've done more than our fair share with Afghan, genuine terror zones where people are fleeing war zones. We've more than shouldered our lot, and yet we're also expected to endlessly be the recipient of economic migrants. It simply has to stop.
Absolutely. And, again, we only have to look not that far, just across the channel to Calais, Martin, don't we? Because you go, oh, gosh, look at them, living in terrible conditions over there. All right, well, whose fault's that? I'm sorry, well, it's either their own or the French government's, isn't it? And they want to come here because we'll shove them up in 4-star hotels.
Yeah, and the reason they're kind of camped under tarpaulin in Calais is because the French don't roll out the red carpet the way we do. Care for Calais are out there, giving them blankets, giving them food, coaching them on how to best attain asylum over here. Lawyers are out there, journalists have been out there reported on this, MPs have been out there reported on this, and there's a precise reason they want to come to our country, and you're right, public services, free accommodation, free meals, and as Nigel Farage exposed on his show, many of these asylum seekers living at taxpayers' expense, full expense, are also working in the black economy, in car washes, places like that. We've been absolutely taken for a ride, and stories like this today need to be the moment where British voters rise up and say, enough of this already, because you're expecting us to be an endless sponge. At the same time, you're not pulling your weight.
Martin, look, thank you, mate. That was fantastic stuff. A strong start to this hour. Martin Daubney there, GB News presenter, contributor, former MEP, very popular in the inbox. Get your views coming in, gbviews@gbnews.com.